Hey there guys, back with another movie review. So, I recently decided to buy the Has Fallen trilogy. I think that's what you call it anyway, the Has Fallen trilogy. The three movies starring Gerard Butler. I bought the trilogy very cheap. I seen it secondhand in a shop. And I figured I'd give these movies a review because I hadn't seen the first two before. I saw the third movie last year in cinema and I wasn't a big fan of it. But I had heard that the previous two were pretty good and yeah, I decided to watch them and going to be reviewing the first one here. So Olympus Has Fallen. Now this movie came out several years ago, and as you guys know, of course, it stars Gerard Butler as the lead role. He's basically a Secret Service agent, so he's like a bodyguard for the president and whatnot. And this movie, it starts off with a failed assassination attempt on the president, basically. And yeah, Gerard Butler, basically in an attempt to save the president's life, he manages to save the president. However, he fails to save the president's wife, and she tumbles off a cliff in her car and in the middle of a snowstorm and whatnot. So basically, yeah, he fails in his attempt, and he decides to resign from his job with the Secret Service and work elsewhere. Now, it skips to about 18 months into the future, and basically there's a meeting at the White House between the president of South Korea and the president of the United States, and during this meeting, a huge attack appears, and basically a group of terrorists from Korea wage war on the White House, and the White House gets attacked by like gunships, by waves and waves of machine gun wielding terrorists, suicide bombers, and it just becomes an all-out war zone. And essentially, there's a hostage situation. The president gets kidnapped, and they're trying to get launch codes and trying to make demands, to sort of remove America from their occupation of South Korea, so that there can be like no resistance to North Korea's war efforts over there. And that was one of my concerns going into this movie, was that this is obviously going to be a very politically themed movie, and I'm not a big fan of like politically themed movies, because they tend to just demonize certain countries and just make certain countries out to be the bad guy, whatever bad guy the establishment doesn't like, and they tend to attack things like patriotism and stuff like that. But surprisingly, I really, really like this movie. This movie's really good, man. It's a brutal, fast-paced, R-rated action film. Gerard Butler, now I like Gerard Butler, very good actor. I've liked him in several movies. I recently reviewed the movie A Law-Abiding Citizen, which came out a couple of years before this. And, his acting performance is very good here, but he also has some very, very good action scenes where he does some of his own stunts here and there. And I just thought that the action in this movie was really good. It's really fast-paced. Like I said, it's brutal. It's a very bloody movie, very violent, very brutal, very R-rated, very graphic, very, how do I describe it? Like the violence in this movie is very hard hitting and realistic, and it's just a very brutal movie, man. A lot of people get stabbed, get shot. There's a scene quite early on in the movie which is quite shocking, where there's a gunship, with miniguns coming out of it, just gunning everybody down, like Secret Service agents, just regular civilians. It's really brutal, to see just civilians get shot to pieces like that, man. And Secret Service agents that are just completely overwhelmed by this attack, and it's just an all-out war. Like, there's a big 20-25 minute stretch of this movie where it's just an all-out gunslinging war between these terrorists and the people trying to defend the White House. And when Gerard Butler gets involved, it turns into sort of like a Die Hard type situation where they're inside this building and there's hostages and you've got the villain who's making demands and whatnot. And Gerard Butler kind of takes the Bruce Willis, John McClane type of role in this movie, where he's got to take them down from the inside and try and save the hostages and whatnot. And there are a couple of twists and turns along the way. There are a couple of characters who turn out to be traitors here and there, and there's some close combat scenes. There's some interesting dialogue between Gerard Butler and the villain, who's I forget the name of the villain of this movie. He plays this basically this Korean terrorist who has been working as a double agent inside the South Korean government and whatnot, and I forget the name of that actor, but you find out that the character is basically a terrorist from North Korea who had a horrible upbringing, and his father was executed, and he became very vengeful, and he attacked the British embassy and stuff like that, and you get a very politically themed plot here, and the way that the movie ends, there's definitely a lot of patriotism. This is a very patriotic movie, and I'm not knocking it for that. That's actually pretty good. I mean, I like it when movies are patriotic, when it's done right. And this movie, I just felt that while it's not a great movie, it's a very, very good movie. It's just a fun, realistic, over-the-top, well-acted, well-filmed, well-directed action film. And I just thought this movie was a blast. I really did. It was definitely a heck of a lot better than the third movie, the one I saw in the cinema. This was definitely a lot better than that. And Gerard Butler's in really good shape. He looks the part in this movie, and he's very good in action movies. If you give him the right script and the right director, he is very impressive in action films. And his action sequences are awesome in this movie, and I really enjoyed it. So, not really got much more to say about this movie other than if you're looking for just a time waster, just want to relax and watch a fun, over-the-top, action film with some realistic and gritty violence and action scenes that are very fun to watch and really brutal, you probably enjoy this one. You really will. It's a good movie, man. It's really enjoyable, and it's, as far as Gerard Butler goes, I wouldn't say it's his best movie, but it's probably his best, like, just a flat out R-rated action film. I definitely think it's his best one of those. So yeah, I like this movie, man. There's one little criticism I do have of it, and that's one of the actors in this movie who I've talked about before. Morgan Freeman is in this movie right now. A lot of people like Morgan Freeman. I don't understand why. Morgan Freeman is one of these actors who every single movie he's in, he just phones in his performance. It's like he shows up and he's there for the paycheck. Like, he's in this movie, right? There's a lot of life and death things going on. Like, there's some serious, crazy shit going on in this movie, and he's supposed to be like integral to the plot, but he sits there acting like he doesn't give a fuck while everyone else is trying hard. Like, all the other actors in the movie are giving 110% to their performance. You've got Morgan Freeman there sitting there like he doesn't give a shit, and he's clearly there, doesn't care about the movie. He's there for a paycheck, and I'm not a fan of Morgan Freeman as an actor. Never been a fan of him as an actor, and he was definitely the worst part of this movie in my opinion. He was awful. There is a bit of CGI too here and there with some of the helicopters and gunships and whatnot, but again, it's nothing too noticeable. And other than Morgan Freeman phoning in his performance and some of the bits of CGI that look a bit fake here and there, I think this is a totally fun movie. I'll give it a solid 7 out of 10. Stay tuned for my reviews for the sequels. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and God bless.